Right after we had finished eating, there was a sudden loud explosion, or almost felt like a collision on the plane, where we were jerked rather suddenly. But that was more or less the extent of it. The plane, I guess, dipped a little bit at that time, so it didn't. I wasn't alarmed. I thought that it seemed like things were going to be okay. Shortly thereafter, the pilot did tell us that they did lose one of the 3 engines on the plane. I was familiar enough to know that planes did not lead all their engines, and you could lose one and fly. So I was absolutely not concerned. I thought, oh, we'll be in Chicago. We lost an engine. You know, the things I remember is at impact is that when the plane impacted, the wing that I was sitting above impacted first, and then we landed more or less on the belly of the plane. We slid and we tumbled, which is what people have seen in the video. And my recollections from that point in time was just, if I remember anything, I remember the sounds and the smell. I mean, the sound of the concrete, the explosions as some of the fuel was hitting, and the smell of the jet fuel as it was escaping after that wing broke off. It was just because my eyes were closed, I was in the brace position, and I can remember the extraordinary sound that was going on at that time. And and I don't have a good kind of sense for how long, but we slid for a while, and then the photos or the video that you see is the plane tumbles over one time, and that's another recollection I have, is that when that plane tumbled over is just the silence. So you go from this enormous and the explosions, and just, you can barely describe it because I've never heard anything like that before, to silence as we are in the air. Where we were sitting, most of behind me had been compressed, and that's where most of the fatalities in the crash were, that we didn't know we were going to get out. There were sparks, there were fumes, and that was probably, from a straight fear standpoint, was the most afraid I was. I thought, I had understood that I had survived the impact, the crash, but I thought I was going to die. I thought then I was just going to kind of smoke inhalation, I was going to burn to death, it was going to explode. It's hard to believe that it's been 25 years since the plane crashed in Sioux City, Iowa, and oftentimes people will ask me, how did it change you? What effect did it have? And it's really tough to say. It took me a year or so before I'd even get on a plane again. I think there were probably things in my life that I knew I had to get after, that probably, the realization that life is short and that it can go anytime. But all in all, I think it was a conscious decision on my part that I really wanted to move on. So after I got on the flight, I knew that I didn't want to have a life where I didn't fly a plane again. To this day, when I'm on a plane, I think about it. I'm not afraid, but I think about it, what had happened that day in 1989. But I made a point that I didn't want this to define me. I saw a lot of people that really struggled to move on, that find this, and that's fine, but it found this as somehow as a defining moment. And I just felt that, no, this is something that happened. I'm extraordinarily blessed to be able not only to survive it, but to walk away from it and have an amazing life since then. So, I think about it a lot. I think about it when I see my 4 kids, and they can hardly realize potentially how fragile their existence is here, with how close I was to maybe not surviving that.